When I first walked into Hallstrom & Coder, I thought I'd found where I belonged. It was my first real job after college. Clean lobby, soft jazz humming from invisible speakers, a receptionist who greeted me like she already knew my name. There was something intoxicating about it, the promise of being part of something big. Mr. Hallstrom himself was the kind of man people turned to look at. Silver hair, gentle voice, the kind of handshake that lasted a second too long but felt meaningful. "Welcome to the family," he said that first day. "We're not just a company here. We take care of each other." I smiled back, believing him. The first few weeks felt like a dream. Everyone called each other by first names, no titles, no distance. Friday lunches were mandatory but fun. We shared secrets over sushi, laughed about deadlines, stayed late because it felt good to stay late. I'd never had that kind of connection before. The easy camaraderie, the way the office buzzed after hours like a small community that existed just for us. But families, I learned later, can hide things under the warmth. The first odd thing happened during week 4. It was 8 p.m. and most people had gone home. I was still working when my phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Hallstrom. "Still at the office? Good. Come to conference room B. Let's talk about your future here." I remember smoothing my hair, smiling to myself. He noticed me. When I walked in, he was sitting at the long mahogany table, laptop closed, a glass of whiskey by his hand. "Sit down," he said. He asked about my family, my parents, my rent, my student loans. It felt oddly personal, but I didn't want to seem ungrateful. He smiled the whole time, nodding like a priest hearing confession. Then he said, "You're loyal, right? You understand that sometimes loyalty means being available when others aren't." I nodded. Of course I was loyal. He leaned forward. "That's why I know I can count on you. When I say we're a family, I mean we show up for each other, no matter the time." I left that night feeling both proud and unsettled. I told myself it was normal. That mentorship sometimes looked like late-night meetings and strange questions. The next morning, my desk had a gift bag on it. Inside was a designer pen and a note. "For being part of the family, MH." Everyone saw it. My coworkers smiled, but their eyes told a different story. Something between pity and warning. That was the first hairline crack in the illusion. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. The way people whispered after family meetings, the quiet resignations that followed those long nights, how certain employees never got mentioned again once they left. Once, during lunch, I asked Leah, my closest friend there, about it. She froze mid-bite and said quietly, "Just don't stay too late." I laughed it off, pretending I didn't understand, but I did. There was something about the way she said it, like she'd already tried not staying too late once and it hadn't worked. The next Friday, Hallstrom made a toast. "To my team, the heartbeat of this family." He raised his glass. "You've all proven you'll do whatever it takes to keep this place alive." Everyone clinked their glasses. I did too, but my hand was trembling. Later that night, after everyone left, I saw him again, standing in the corridor outside his office with the lights off, watching me. He smiled. "You work hard, don't you?" I forced a laugh, trying to keep up. "Good," he said. "Family should." And then he turned, disappearing into the dark. I went home that night and couldn't shake the feeling that something invisible had shifted. That maybe family didn't mean what I thought it did. Still, I kept showing up, because that's what good employees, what good family, do. The following Monday started like every other. Bright smiles, warm greetings, the illusion of belonging wrapped around me like a soft blanket. But underneath it all, I was already uneasy. I kept replaying that night in the conference room. The way he'd said, "family should," stuck in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just tired, but deep down, I felt it. A quiet dread that wouldn't leave. By the end of the week, it wasn't just me. The energy in the office shifted. There was this heaviness in the air, like everyone was pretending not to notice something. The laughter felt forced. People avoided eye contact when Mr. Hallstrom walked by. Leah had stopped eating lunch with me altogether. One afternoon, I asked if she wanted to grab coffee after work. She didn't even look up from her screen. "Can't. Got a family thing." The words landed differently now. That night, my phone buzzed again at 10:42 p.m. "Need you to review something urgent. Conference room B." My stomach twisted. I told myself it was just work. Nothing more. But when I got there, the lights were dimmed, and the whiskey glass was back. He smiled when he saw me. The same soft smile that had once felt fatherly. "Sit," he said. "You know, this company only runs because of people like you. People who don't quit when it's inconvenient." I sat. I smiled. I pretended to agree, but every part of me wanted to leave. He talked for an hour about trust and sacrifice. How families don't clock out when it's hard. How I'd earned a level of responsibility others hadn't. It was all wrapped in compliments, but it felt like a cage. By the time I got home, it was almost 2 a.m. My inbox was already flooded with urgent tasks marked by him. And under one of his messages was a reply from HR. Short, cold, and carbon copied to him. "Received. We'll handle it internally." I didn't understand what that meant at first. Then, the next morning, Leah's desk was empty. Her nameplate was gone. No one mentioned her again. That's when the silence started to feel dangerous. The next few weeks became a blur of exhaustion. Late nights, phone calls at odd hours, team bonding sessions that never ended before midnight. My friends stopped asking me to hang out. My mom called one night and said I sounded different, hollow, distracted. I laughed it off, told her I was just busy. But the truth was, I was losing myself. Every time I tried to rest, my phone would light up. Every time I thought about quitting, I remembered how Hallstrom looked at me. Like I owed him something, like walking away would make me the disloyal one. He'd built the perfect trap, a workplace that made you feel guilty for having boundaries. Sometimes when I stayed late, I'd hear voices down the hallway, low, tense arguments behind closed doors. Once, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, walking out of his office with her mascara smudged and her badge clutched in her hand. She never came back. At 1:17 a.m. on a Wednesday, I got another text. Need you for a family emergency. Come to the office. My hands shook. I stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. What kind of emergency? The kind that proves you belong. I should have said no. I should have turned my phone off. But I didn't. Because by then, I was too deep in it. Too afraid of what would happen if I stopped playing along. When I arrived, the office was empty except for him. He poured 2 drinks. You're special, he said softly. Not everyone can handle being part of this. I nodded, pretending I didn't see the way his hand lingered when he passed me the glass. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't mentorship. It wasn't opportunity. It was control dressed up as care. I left before finishing the drink, muttering something about an early meeting. He didn't stop me, just smiled again and said, Remember, loyalty is everything. That night, I sat in my car for over an hour, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I thought about quitting, about reporting him, about telling someone. But who? HR worked for him. Everyone else was silent. And me? I was just another name on his family list. The next morning, he called me into his office. I'm worried about your performance, he said. You've been distant lately, not showing up the way you used to. He leaned back, sighing like a disappointed father. I thought we had a bond. The guilt hit me before I could stop it. I apologized. For what? I didn't even know. He smiled. Good. Families fight, but they always come home. I walked out of his office and straight to the restroom. My reflection in the mirror didn't look like me anymore. My eyes were tired. My smile felt foreign. I realized I wasn't just working for him. I was living under him. And the scariest part? I didn't know how to get out. I wanted to scream, to tell someone, to break the silence that was eating me alive. But every time I opened my mouth, the same thought came back. What if they don't believe me? So I stayed quiet. I kept showing up, because that's what he taught us to do, because in his version of family, love wasn't given. It was earned through fear. And by then, I had already forgotten what real family was supposed to feel like. I used to think exhaustion made you numb, but it doesn't. It sharpens you. When you're that tired, every sound feels louder, every silence heavier, every instinct screaming just a little clearer. That's how I started noticing the cracks. It began with a misplaced folder, one I didn't even realize I'd dropped. It was a client file, nothing special. But when I came back to retrieve it, the folder wasn't where I'd left it. It was on Mr. Hallstrom's desk, neatly stacked among his own. When I reached for it, he smiled. You really should be more careful, he said. Family looks out for family, but they also need to trust one another. It should have ended there. But something about the way he said trust made me freeze. Like the word meant something else to him. That same day, I overheard 2 coworkers whispering near the copy machine. I only caught fragments. HR knows. The recording. She's gone. When they noticed me, they stopped immediately, eyes darting away. I didn't ask questions. Not then. But the word recording stayed with me. The following week, I stayed late again. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know how to say no anymore. The office was quiet, humming with the low buzz of machines left on overnight. Around 12:40 a.m., I heard a sound, a soft click like a door latch. I looked up, and in the glass reflection of my monitor, I saw light spilling out from conference room B. He was there. Again. But this time, he wasn't alone. There was a woman sitting across from him, someone I hadn't seen before. She looked nervous, her hands clasped on the table. He was speaking in that same soothing tone I knew too well. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see the pattern, the leaning in, the small smile, the way he reached for her wrist like it was a comforting gesture. I couldn't move. I just watched, heart pounding, realizing I wasn't special. None of us were. He wasn't mentoring anyone. He was collecting us. The next morning, she was gone. No trace in the internal emails, no desk assignment, no goodbye. That's when I started looking closer. I checked the internal chat logs, messages from old employees who had left suddenly. All their accounts had been deactivated, but one name still lingered in archived mail. Leah. I searched it. Most threads were empty, but one message remained in my inbox, unread, marked private. It was dated the night before she disappeared. If you're getting this, don't ignore it. Go to the second floor copy room. Look behind the vent near the supply cabinet. Don't trust him. Don't trust HR. And for God's sake, don't answer his messages after midnight. My breath caught. I reread it 5 times before I even stood up. That night, I waited until everyone left. I took the service elevator to the second floor and found the vent she'd mentioned, covered in dust, half hidden behind a stack of paper boxes. I unscrewed it with a borrowed key from maintenance. Inside was a small flash drive taped to the wall. My hands shook as I pulled it free. When I plugged it into my laptop, I expected work files or emails. Something technical. Something boring. Instead, there were videos. Dozens of them. Each one named after a date. Each one time-stamped after 11 p.m. The first video I opened showed Leah in conference room B, sitting exactly where I had, staring at the table as Hallstrom paced behind her. The audio was faint, but his words were clear enough. You owe me loyalty. That's what family means here. Leah's voice trembled. I just want to do my job. You are. This is part of it. I slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. My skin went cold. The room suddenly felt too small, too silent. I realized then, the cameras weren't for security. They were for control. All those meetings, all those mentorship sessions, they were recorded. For leverage. For silence. For power. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in my apartment with the flash drive clutched in my hand, shaking. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was done being part of this. I emailed HR, requesting an urgent meeting. They replied almost instantly. We're aware of your concerns. Let's meet privately after hours. The phrasing made my stomach turn. After hours? Always after hours, I didn't go. Instead, I made copies of the files. One for myself, one sent to an encrypted folder I created under a fake name. The next evening, when I got to work, my badge didn't open the door. The scanner flashed red. Locked out. A minute later, my phone buzzed. We need to talk. Family doesn't turn on family. MH. That's when it hit me. He knew. I wasn't safe anymore. I grabbed my things and left before he could find me. But even in the parking lot, even miles from that office, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching, that invisible eyes were following me, waiting to see if I'd stay silent or fight back. For the first time since I joined that company, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of what I'd already been part of, and as dawn broke that morning, one truth settled deep in my chest. Families keep secrets, but I was done keeping his. When you finally stop being afraid, the silence becomes unbearable. For weeks, that office had trained me to swallow everything, doubt, fear, anger. But once I saw what was on that flash drive, there was no going back. I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't show up for work the next day. My phone kept lighting up with messages from Hallstrom. This kind of behavior worries me. You're better than this. Don't throw away your future over a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. Every word felt like another hand trying to pull me back into his cage. By noon, he left a voicemail. His voice was calm, almost amused. You don't have to make this ugly. Families argue. Then they talk. You and I can fix this. 2 a.m. conference room B. That time again. Always that time? I deleted the message and turned my phone off, but ignoring him didn't feel like enough. I wanted him to know I wasn't scared anymore. That someone was finally seeing through the performance he'd built around himself. So I called Leah's sister. Her number was hidden inside the flash drive, an old text exchange buried deep. I didn't expect her to answer, but she did. When I told her who I was, she went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I've been waiting for this call." Turns out Leah wasn't the only one who had tried to speak up. There had been others. Women who filed quiet complaints. Emails that disappeared. Careers that ended overnight. She gave me the name of a journalist. Someone who had been trying to expose corporate abuse cases like this for years. I reached out that night, attached the footage, and waited. By morning, I had a reply. "Meet me at the cafe across from your building. Don't use your work phone." I got there early, wearing the same black coat I used to wear to work. The journalist, her name was Renee, looked tired, older than her photo, but her eyes were sharp. She'd seen this story before. "They all start with the same line," she said. "We're a family here. You'd be surprised how many predators hide behind that." We talked for hours. I gave her everything, the files, the texts, the recordings. She promised to protect my identity until they had more. It should have felt freeing, but it didn't. I knew what was coming. That night, my phone started buzzing again. Unknown number. Same time, 2:03 a.m., I let it ring. Then again. Then again, finally I picked up. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. His tone wasn't calm anymore. It was cold, sharp. "You lied," I said. My voice surprised me, steady, low. "You called it family. It was never family. You don't understand what you're ruining." "I think I do." He exhaled slowly. "You think they'll believe you? You think you're the first?" And there it was. Confirmation. "Good night, Mr. Hallstrom." I hung up. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, security was waiting by the front door. "My badge still didn't work. HR wants to see you," one of them said. Inside the glass conference room sat two people I'd never met, legal advisors probably, and Hallstrom, at the head of the table, smiling like none of it mattered. "Let's keep this civil," he said. I sat across from him. The room was quiet. Except for the faint hum of the air conditioner, he started talking about misunderstandings. About employee boundaries, about how he'd always looked after me like a daughter. Every word made my skin crawl. Then he slid a folder across the table. "Sign this non-disclosure agreement. We'll provide a generous severance. You'll leave with a spotless record." I looked down at the papers. Dense legal text, his signature already there in neat blue ink. "I don't want your money," I said. He laughed. "Everyone wants something." I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. "Not this time. What I want is for you to stop." For the first time, his smile faltered. Just slightly, but enough. Then I reached into my bag and set my phone on the table. Screen up. The red recording light blinked faintly. His face went pale. "You recorded this?" "I've been recording since you called me last night." He stood abruptly. "You don't know what you're doing." "Maybe not," I said. "But Renee does. And so do the police." For a second, he just stared at me. Then his expression cracked. The charming mask he'd worn for years slipped, and what looked back at me wasn't confidence anymore. It was fear. He tried to regain composure, but the room had changed. The power shifted quietly but completely. I gathered my things, stood up, and walked to the door. Before leaving, I turned back once. "You were right about one thing," I said. "Family always comes home. Just not the way you planned." I didn't look back again. Outside. The sun was rising, the first one I'd seen without him deciding when I could rest. My phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't him. It was Renee. "We're publishing tomorrow. Get ready." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not the rehearsed office smile. Not the nervous one I'd worn at midnight meetings. But a real one. Because for once, the truth wasn't hidden in the dark anymore. It was coming out at 2 a.m. Only this time, it wasn't him calling. It was me. The article dropped on a Thursday morning at exactly 8:07 a.m. I know because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Renee hadn't warned me it would go live that soon, maybe on purpose. Maybe to protect me from the panic that would come before the relief. The headline was clean, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Inside the family at Hallstrom & Co., how a culture of loyalty became a cage. My name wasn't in it. She kept her promise. But the story, my story, was all there between the lines. The late-night calls, the manipulations, the videos. By 9 a.m., the office building was surrounded by cameras. By noon, 3 former employees had come forward. By evening, Hallstrom's photo was everywhere. The same practiced smile I used to trust now frozen beneath words like investigation and abuse of power. I didn't go to work that day. I sat on my couch, watching it unfold from my living room. I should have felt vindicated, But mostly I felt empty, like someone had scooped out months of fear and left only quiet behind. Still, there were moments that broke through. The first was when Leah's sister called. She was crying, the kind of crying that sounds like a wound finally breathing. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt tired. By Friday, the company released a statement, the usual PR language about internal reviews, commitment to safety, and temporary leave of absence. But no one bought it. The story had momentum now. Every person he'd ever silenced found the courage to speak. Dozens of anonymous posts, screenshots, testimonies. They started connecting the dots. The same pattern repeated for years. The justice didn't come with a dramatic arrest or a movie-style confession. It came quietly, through cracks in his empire. 100 truths whispering at once until they were too loud to ignore. 2 weeks later, the board forced him to resign. The company's shares dropped overnight. And for the first time, that building, the one that had felt so untouchable, started to look small. Renee texted me the day he stepped down. "He's out." "You good?" I typed back, "I think so," but I wasn't sure what good meant anymore. There was still fallout. HR tried to call me to clarify details. I didn't answer. My inbox filled with messages from coworkers, some thanking me, others scared to be associated with me. I didn't blame them. I knew what it felt like to be afraid. A few of them met with me later, privately, in quiet cafes where the air smelled like coffee and new beginnings. We didn't talk about him much. We talked about what we'd lost, our sense of safety, our trust, our belief that work could be a home. Justice wasn't clean. It wasn't triumphant. It was heavy, messy, slow, but it was real. Then one morning, a package arrived at my door. No return label, no sender. Inside was a small flash drive and a note. "You started something. Finish it." I plugged it in carefully. It was a recording, one I hadn't seen before. A boardroom meeting. Hallstrom's voice, raised and defensive. "You think you're safe without me? You think this company runs without loyalty?" A woman's voice cut through his. "Loyalty isn't silence." Then the video ended. I forwarded it to Renee. That clip became part of the follow-up piece. The fall of a family man. It sealed the story's legacy. When the legal proceedings started, I testified anonymously through written statements. I didn't need to see him again. I didn't need him to know I was still standing. The night they announced the settlement, a multi-million-dollar penalty, public apology, and restitution for victims, I went out for a walk. The city lights felt different that night. Softer, maybe. Or maybe it was me who'd changed. For months, I'd walked those same streets after midnight with fear sitting in my chest. Now the same hour felt almost peaceful. That was my justice. Not headlines or money or revenge. Just being able to walk home without looking over my shoulder. A few days later, I passed by the Hallstrom building. The nameplate was gone. The glass doors were covered in brown paper. For the first time, it looked ordinary. Just another empty space waiting to be filled with something new. I stood there for a while, remembering my first day. How proud I'd been, how innocent. How quickly the idea of family had become a weapon. Then I turned away. Because justice, I realized, isn't about watching someone fall. It's about finally letting go of the version of yourself they built for their convenience. And I was ready to let go. It's strange how silence can feel louder after chaos. For months, every vibration of my phone used to spike my heart rate. Every ping, every email subject line, a potential bomb waiting to go off. Now my phone is quiet. And sometimes that silence feels foreign. After Hallstrom fell, people treated me differently. Some like a survivor, others like a ghost. I'd walk into cafes and spot old coworkers whispering in corners, their eyes flicking toward me. Not out of judgment this time, but curiosity. Like they wanted to ask, what was it like? But didn't have the words. The truth? It was hell. But it also taught me something I never expected to learn. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it trembles, cries, or hides for a while before standing up again. I took time off. Deleted work apps, changed numbers, stayed offline. The world was still spinning without me. And that was the best reminder that I could step away and not collapse with it. My therapist said something that stuck. Trauma doesn't end when justice begins. It ends when you stop defining yourself by what broke you. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because for so long, what broke me had become my identity. The girl who worked late. The one who stayed quiet. The one who finally spoke. The whistleblower. The headline without a name. But I wasn't any of those things. Not entirely. I was someone rebuilding from the rubble of loyalty misplaced. One night, around 2 a.m., the same cursed hour where it had all begun, I found myself walking past that building again. It was empty now, gutted for renovation. The lights inside were dim, construction tape across the doors. But for a moment, I saw my reflection in the glass, standing where the old me once sat trembling under fluorescent light. She looked calm, different, free. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't about him. It wasn't about the company or the people who stayed silent. It was about forgiving myself for staying as long as I did. We all crave belonging. We all want to believe that we're a family here means warmth, safety, shared purpose. But families, real families, don't demand silence as proof of love. Now, when I hear someone say that line at work or online, "We're a family here," I pause. And I wonder, are you building a family or a cage? It's been a year since I left Hallstrom & Co. I work for a small nonprofit now. No slogans, no forced smiles. Just people who show up, do their jobs, and go home to their real families. It's quieter, simpler, and somehow feels more honest than any team-building night ever did. Renee and I still talk sometimes. She tells me about other stories, other workplaces, other survivors, and how each one finds the courage to come forward a little faster because they read mine. That's the part that still gets me. The idea that something I lived through in fear is now someone else's reason to speak. Last week, Leah, the intern who first confided in me, sent a postcard from Seattle. On the back, in her messy handwriting, she'd written, "Thanks for showing me that leaving isn't quitting." I stared at that line for a long time, because maybe that's the truest reflection of all, that walking away from something toxic isn't weakness. It's the most radical act of self-respect there is. So if you're reading this, and someone at your job tells you, "We're a family here," listen carefully. Because families don't call you at 2 a.m. to make you feel small. Families don't punish honesty. Families don't twist loyalty into silence. If they do, they're not family. They're control wrapped in affection, and once you see it for what it is, you can't unsee it. I still wake up some nights remembering the sound of that 2 a.m. call. The dread, the shaking hands, the feeling of being trapped. But now, when my phone buzzes at that hour, it's usually just a friend checking in, or my mom sending me a random meme because she can't sleep. And for the first time, I smile instead of flinch. That's what healing looks like, not forgetting what happened, but knowing it no longer controls the room. So maybe the story doesn't end with his downfall or my revenge. Maybe it ends here, in quiet rooms, soft mornings, and the kind of peace that doesn't need to announce itself. Because I finally learned that family isn't who demands your loyalty, it's who earns it. And that's a lesson I'll never unlearn.